Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuba Ilya.
It is indeed a beautiful morning. Another day has been given to us. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Darshan Hussaina Usman.
Well, it's very interesting that we have, a beautiful morning like this to start the second day of the week.
Yes.
And many people are probably, going over what happened yesterday to have another beautiful day from today. The week is still fresh, so
young.
you still have
day. Yes, whatever it is that you didn't achieve yesterday, today is another day to, start afresh and, see if you can achieve it before the week runs out.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, today on Daybreak, we will be discussing Islamic finance, what it's about, and all it entails. We will be joined by Umahani Ahmad Amin, the chair, 5th African International Conference on Islamic Finance, Conference Planning Committee.
And to commemorate World Orphans Day, we're having Mrs. Julie Quincy, the proprietor of Julie Quincy Orphanage.
But before that, let's take a look at the events of the 5th of October in world history, 9th of October in world history, just to have a sense of what was before now.
Welcome back. Today in history. Today is World Freedom Day, and on this day 22 years ago in 1989, the Berlin Wall is opened after dividing the city for 28 good years. This particular wall actually separated families and communities for almost 3 decades, but today it marks the rise of democracy and freedom and the fall of communism in Eastern Europe and obviously around the world. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte participates in a coup and declares himself dictator of France. In 1848, the first U.S. post office in California opens in San Francisco. In 1938, Nazis kill 35 Jews, arrest thousands and destroy Jewish synagogues, homes and stores throughout Germany. And in 1985, a youngest person to become world chess champion was a 22-year-old Russian Garry Kasparov, and he won the 13th World Chess Championship against Anatoly Karpov to become the world's youngest chess champion. Now, talking about chess, I remember a few years ago when a story came out of an 8-year-old Nigerian in the U.S. and he was homeless. He actually became the world's, the chess champion. He would become a chess champion. So we'd actually say, he is the youngest, when you go back to when chess became like a world game.
Yeah, I mean, chess is a beautiful game. I mean, it's one of the most mentally engaging games that you can think of, that very intelligent people, enjoy. So it's very important that we have that in our history.
Yeah.
looking back and how it has evolved over the years, is now becoming, a career path for many people,
yeah.
and so on and so forth.
Do you play chess, by the way?
Well, not really. I won't consider myself a chess player, even though I try my hands once in a while.
Okay.
But
you know the
it's
basics,
neither here nor
though.
there. Yeah.
So, all right. So, what about the first U.S. post office in California? Now we can actually see how it actually spread across the world. But if we're talking about post offices in recent time, would you say it is living up to its, expectation? Because I remember when we needed to buy 10 Naira stamps, 5 Naira stamps to be able to
send letters.
Yes, send letters. That was before the invention of the
Yeah,
telephone.
the evolution in technology has changed all of that. People no longer have to really write letters, and that's why so many. The old generation or the older generation will always say, well, young children of today, they do poorly in written English because they do not, they didn't find themselves in days where they have to rely on writing to communicate, and again, if you look at, technology, social media and all of that, the way it has changed the use of language, especially in writing and all of that, you find certain, I would say, should I call them acronyms now, or should I call them jargons now that are used on social media by young people, LOL, BRB, and the rest of them,
Yeah, but a lot of people
seem to kind of change, the way language is used.
Yes, but then a lot of people still post parcels, via post offices, but it might take a longer time. And it has actually gone digital because you can track your parcels online,
You can make your request online.
Exactly.
You can do a whole lot online, really, and it's very interesting. I am hoping that in this part of the world we really rise up to the occasion and be able to match up with the recent happenings as far as deliveries are concerned. Of course, we see courier companies, in the country. Some of them private, most of them I would say private.
Yeah.
But our own post office, government-owned post office. I'm not sure if we've been able to evolve to that level where we render such courier services and other things. Because letters, the truth is, we're not going back in time. It has changed, it has moved. Nobody will be writing letters for you now, writing letters, but maybe emails, and all of that. So quite a lot of changes, but thankfully we had that in history, and it has spread all over the world, like you said, knowing that you can always use others to send information, to send parcels, to send gifts and all of that. It's quite a very interesting fact in our history.
Yes, indeed. All right, with this, we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be time for the dailies today. Stay tuned.
When a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, it's time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, and we have Ben Shemang, who is the director of Voice of Nigeria, in the studio to spotlight and give perspectives on the stories that made the headlines this morning. Good morning and welcome.
You're welcome.
My pleasure. You were listening, thanks.
Yes. All right, let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And on page 19 of the Daily Trust newspaper, at the very top, you would find a petrol price. NIMASA NPA flouting presidential directive, marketers are saying. And then you would also see on page 10, IGR, Lagos leads as FCT beats Rivers, Kano, 33 others. The lead story on Daily Trust's pension scam. Pensioners cheer as Maina backs 61 years imprisonment. That's a very interesting story there. You may want to find the details on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. The riders to that: act sordid, immoral, dirty. That's according to judge. Another rider says lampoons banks for aiding abating. Orders convicts to refund 2.4 billion naira, forfeit 2 houses. And below the pictorial there, you would see FG governors in fresh battle over 172 billion naira Paris Club deductions. The picture there, one of the other pictures there, shows thousands of supporters on Friday thronged the residence of Senator Muhammad Danjuma Goje in Gombe State hours after he was attacked. Yeah, we saw that viral video on social media where he was said to have been attacked by hoodlums or thoughts or whatever you may want to call them on his return to the state for a wedding. You would also see supplementary poll, Soludo Ozigbo battle for Ihiala today. Nigeria's IDPs figure to hit 3 million, that's according to the federal government. Daily Trust's golf tournament gathers momentum. These are some of the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper today.
All right, with that, we'll move on to the front page of Punch newspaper. Right at the top, you have a story here. Lagos tops as state's half-year IGR reaches 849.12 billion naira. And you can find more on that story on page 19. Uncertainty hangs over new PDP leadership as Secondus approaches Supreme Court. And you find details of that story on page 2. Cooking gas price jumps by 240%. Marketers halt imports. And that you can find on page 19. 2.3 billion naira theft. EFCC customs clash on custody as Maina bags 61-year imprisonment. And that is, you can find that details of that particular story on page 9. Moving on, APC PDP bank on runoff. Obi party alleged vote buying others. And then we have another story here on mobile banking. MTN Airtel market cap gains 637.12 billion naira as CBN approval looms. And then right at the bottom, we have Ikoyi collapse building subscribers signed over $500,000 contracts each. That you can find on page 20. And 40-year-old Ogun butcher arrested over lover's death after sex. And you can find that story on page 8. Kwara barred from UBEC fund over 1 billion naira looting by ex-government, says governor. That you can find on page 9. And the major story here on the front page of Punch newspaper says governors attack Malami over $418 million consultant's fee, says AGF lied. And the writers here says haste suggests a special relationship between AGF office consultant, says NGF, and state resources needed for critical development should not be frittered away. And you can find details of that story on page 2. These are all the stories we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Right, on the Nation newspaper this morning, the first story you would see at the very top is on page 4. It says NDA attack, Air Force sergeant nabbed in Yola. You'd find also Maina jailed 8 years for 2 billion naira pension theft. The writer also says to forfeit 2.1 billion naira and other houses. That's on page 28. 5G network is not hazardous, says NCC. Anambra, Soludo, Ozigbo, Uba, others battle for Ihiala. That's on page 2. And then, of course, you'd find the lead story there says governors Malami's role in Paris Club refund suspect. You'd see also the writer there saying row over $418 million consultancy fee deepens. Proposed deductions hasty. Naiti to unveil 77 oil firms' status in 2.6 trillion tax arrears. At the very bottom there, you'd see on those screens 3,000 civil servants over age falsification. That's interesting. 3,000, that's a large number.
Yes, it is. All right, so on the Guardian newspaper, we have ECOWAS sustains Guinea sanctions, imposes fresh ones on Mali, and that you can find on page 3. Air Force arrests officer in connection with bandits' attack on NDA. This particular story made a lot of headlines yesterday, and you can find details of that on page 2. Boko Haram attacks military base in Borno. That you can find on page 5 and on page 7. Why Imo Assembly impeached Emeziem as Speaker, installed eBay. And the lead story here is candidates upbeat as INEC concludes Anambra Guber. And we have a writer here that says, I can still win this election, says PDP's Ozigbo. APC refutes plan to drag Soludo INEC to court. INEC adjusts voting time, reruns hold 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. APC woes self-inflicted, says Nwosu. Yaga Africa demands audit of BVAs to prevent delay, voter disenfranchisement, and some coalition officers not good at mathematics, says INEC director. And the final story here with the pictorial of Maina smiling says Abdurrashid Maina guilty as charged. More details of that story on page 3.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper this morning. At the very top there, you'd see Anambra Guber. Supplementary poll holds from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. today. That's according to INEC. The lead story says $418 million Paris Club payments. Malami working against public interest. That's according to Nigerian Governors Forum. With the riders there says AGF's actions raises questions of propriety and the spirit of justice. No violation of process. Deductions from Paris Club loan refunds ratified by court judgments. That's Malami responding to that allegation. Now, it will take Nigeria 120 years to meet medical demands. That's according to Minister. Should we be concerned about that? I think that we should. It's alarming, really. That's that for stories on the Daily Times newspaper today.
All right, we'll take one final paper here, which is Daily Sun. And Anambra INEC holds supplementary election in Ihiala today. A writer here says, I've not made comments on Anambra election, says Umahi. On page 26, you'd find Niger Delta Group projects 3% to South-South in NNPC's 621.2 billion naira for road construction. And the lead story here says, Paris Club deductions. Governors furious with Malami. Accuse AGF of working against Nigeria's interest. Looted assets. We've recorded appreciable milestones, says Justice Minister. And that story you can find on page 5 and 6. And we also have this story here that says, collapsed building. Lagos Assembly seeks compensation for bereaved families. 2.1 billion naira. Court jails Maina 8 years. On page 26, you'll find Obasanjo, Sultan, others raise the alarm over failing education. On page 6, you'd find the story that says Nigeria facing new dimensions of threats, says Defense Minister. And Kalu passionate about Nigeria's unity. Lowen tells Northern governors, monarchs, and that you can find on page 28. And at the footer of the front page of Daily Sun newspaper, you find drama in Imo as lawmakers impeach Speaker, reinstate sacked deputy on page 28.
Quite interesting stories on the front pages this morning. Again, let's welcome our reviewer, the newspaper review for today, Ben Sherman, who is director at Voice of Nigeria. Let's begin with the story on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper about the pension scam. Pensioners chair as Maina backs 61 years imprisonment. Would you say that justice has been served?
Honestly, justice has been sealed, packed, and delivered. Because if you look at the way pensioners are suffering, it's that serious. Here you are, a worker who has put in 35 years in service. Now, how do we make life better for them? So, okay, let's go into contributory pension. From your salary, something is taken there, government sends up a percentage, and it is safe for you, waiting for that rainy day. So things went bizarre. Maina was brought in as a savior. Suddenly, Maina became a mole. He was rather helping himself. So justice has been served. And if you even look at what we call this contributory pension, Ayuba, you see, some guys will work for 35 years and now you have 20 million, you have 50 million as you are retiring. But you don't have a house. But you have money kept for you somewhere. It's expected that 2 years to the end of your service, you can borrow from that your same money. But the law will say no. You know, so some of these things would need some amendments here and there to enable pensioners to always smile. And that's why, check their lifespan, so short, they die easily because houses are just not there. Many of them who indeed choose to be very, very good public servants. So that has to be looked at. Apart from that, you also see the corrupt nature in which these pension funds have been handled. And you just see pension administrators, some of these companies, as much as they use your money, they are told don't touch the principal, but they use it in trading and you can't borrow from it. It is just not right. And sometimes when they've had enough trading with your money, they transfer you to another company. Just like that. You know the way you play football. Tap here, you turn to the left, play to the other, and you pass on. So the circle continues.
And one thing about the role of commercial banks in this, we have a writer saying the judge is criticizing banks for aiding and abetting. What are we not doing to make sure that banks do not become, partners in crime?
That's where you have the Finance Intelligence Unit. They used to work with EFCC, but the law was separated, so they all are different entities. What it entails is that, Ayuba, if you go there and withdraw as an individual, 1 million naira, your name will have to be sent to EFCC under close focus. If a Daily Trust, for example, goes to deposit 5 million or withdraws 5 million, of course that is under focus, so that you track the transactions of money. It therefore follows that this money is not cash, it's not liquid. I mean, it's there in its form. It's not as if it is transferred using the internet. Even if it is transferred, I mean, someone somewhere is responsible, the banking industry. Monies are kept in the banks. So it follows that it takes two to tangle. If somebody's money was stolen and another one was given to keep, that is a thief. If somebody's money is with you and you added it's taken away, you are also culpable. So the law should be looked at. The judge, I expect that whatever the laws of Finance Intelligence Unit are, they should look at that aspect. Shouldn't the banks be held culpable? Shouldn't the banks be responsible for some of these anomalies, these criminalities that are rocking Nigeria and sending some Nigerians into the early graves? I think it should be done.
But what's the possibility of these pensioners actually getting their monies back? Because we have a writer that says the court had ordered convicts to refund 2.4 billion naira and forfeit houses. And we've seen cases where people and companies have been asked by courts to, refund debts and, nothing has happened.
Yeah, you see, sometimes you have what you call bad debt. I mean, someone owes you. He's so sick now, and you want him to pay when that man is trying to even survive. That is one. Someone owes you his debt. How you want to recover? How do you recover it? And sometimes some of these people get these loans. They don't invest in an industry that you can go and say, okay, if this industry or company was the guarantor or is the guarantee that if I fail, you grab this company. They don't invest in some of these things. They go into social activities. You carry your people to go to holy pilgrimage here and there. You carry your people for weddings here and there. So such money that disappear just like the vapor or a candle in the air. How do you recoup? How do you pay these people? Look at the house that just collapsed in Ikoyi. You say pay compensation. The man who owns the house is also dead there. And how do you recoup that? Who are you going to sue now? Except if there is a company that survives, or that is that is also a legal person. When it comes to legality, it means that company can be liable. But if this man is a sole entity in this business, now he is gone. How do you recoup? How do you pay all of this? Materials have been bought. Materials have been assembled. Architects were all involved, and you could see that now. Look, everything is now gone down the drain, down a very deep ditch. So it's not going to be easy. However, if you do get some, you have when you have administrators being appointed for companies, if you are winding up, you can no longer perform according to the laws establishing you. You do have a government agency that will ensure you wind up. But sometimes these people will sit for how many weeks, how many months, and are claiming what you call sitting allowances from these same people's money. And that's different from their own salaries. So it's a gamut of too many bad things that need corrections. Hussein.
All right, now we need to see more, of course, when it comes to dealing with corruption in the sector. We've had cases where, in the name of verifications, things are made more difficult for these pensioners, and in the process, some of them are even claimed to have died, as outcome of the, verification. And then when you investigate, you find out that they are not dead, they are alive. But the process is made much difficult, for some of them. What can we do about that?
Yes, sometimes we need honesty. Why is it that people that we know are dead, you still pay them in court? You collect this money and share behind the scene. It's a thing that should be corrected. And when young people are in charge, 2 years, 3 years graduates, they're working. Now you have this old man who retired how many years ago? Say, Baba, go and bring your letter of first appointment, letter of last promotion. The man does not have many of these things any longer. Does it make it a nullity that it does not exist? That the paper does not, the appointment letter is no longer there with him, and he is there, it's confirmed, look at his file, it's available. Why do you make these people suffer? And sometimes this verification, they say you're going to do it according to zones. Someone is in Maiduguri, he's going to Bauchi to do verification. You can imagine the distance. Someone is in Sokoto, he's going to Kaduna to go do verification, because they are now doing it according to zones. Look, in as much as we've gone into what is called e-governance, we should be able to click a file and this man's details will just come up. Instead of all, if you say bring your letter of first appointment, what happened to the photocopy that was kept in the file? So we should be looking at some of these things. And every year, I tell you, Ayuba, every year we face what is called constant verification, constant revalidation. Are you still in service and all that stuff? Then you also have the age cheats. People who just continue, they continue to change their age verification, declaration of age. And that's why today I like what is happening. When you enter a university, you arrive from JAM, your age is reflected. You move to university, your age is reflected. You go to university, your age is reflected. Your job, everything is not. So it means sanity is coming along the line. But again, we should begin to take conscience, as a serious matter in this country.
Yeah. One of the stories, now that you mentioned issues of age, like in Ondo State, we are seeing that the state is screening 3,000 civil servants over age falsification. This is more like becoming a norm in the civil service. People do all of that. How can we make things less difficult for ourselves?
Yes, and that is why right from the school we should take this birth certificate seriously. If you don't have, the court is there for you. You do your declaration of age. And school administration ensure that every stage, if a child enters a school, make sure that it enters that school at so age. If you are exiting, you're giving a testimonial, you exited there at the age of this. You go to any other school, if you are picking a job, you're using credentials that have all this kind of thing. And for God's sake, let us just stop, just cheating. You want to remain in service. Now, you see an old man, you have grandchildren, these children want to enter the service and work, but you are still occupying their tomorrow. Keep on telling us children are leaders of tomorrow, but you keep on occupying and spending their tomorrow. It doesn't go well at all.
Well, I actually know this is not a trending topic anymore, but what is your take on the government borrowing from pensions?
That's a very serious matter. Look, by December next year, I'll be quitting civil service. I'll be 60 years, for example. But my fear now is we're hearing that government wants to borrow from our own money. We pensioners, we contributed, and the money is in trillions. Now government wants to borrow. They say you want to borrow for infrastructure, to make the roads, to make railway, to give us hospitals. They are good, but we are concerned as to when you are retiring and your money is just not there, you also need it to take care of yourself as an individual. But government has borrowed to ensure that it gives public a utility. And now, you said you are making the roads. Is this same road back to my village there? It is not there. So it's a whole big thing that I think that pensioners should just be left with their money. The money should be meant for them, should just be for them and not just a borrow. If the government is defeated, for example, who says that the incoming government will see it as a priority and pay these civil servants? Some people will even come and say, oh, it's part of the social responsibility. Government has been helping many other people. You were in government, you were fortunate, you were paid constantly. What about those who are in the farmers and other? So we've made the roads so that they can also enjoy the way you enjoy the government. It's a thing that has plus minus. But if honestly they're going to pay, fine. But if they are not, it's going to be a very big problem. And you can see, I see that government is planning to do some restructuring of even agencies, merge, demerge, and scrap some. And you can imagine how many people will be sent into the unemployment market. And also politically, we are going to face election period by next year. Will it be the correct period for a sitting government to engage in all of these things? After all, government really is not about profit making. It's about incomes and expenditure. You expend money for the welfare of people. If government wants to go into commercial ventures, you set up agencies or you just make the environment conducive for business to strive.
All right. Okay, now another story that dominated the front pages of our newspapers today is about the back and forth between the Minister of Justice and the Governors Forum, about the Paris Club refunds. There's a whole lot of suspicion, about the repayment of $418 million consultancy fee and all of that. Isn't it time for us to, lay this matter to rest? And why has it continued to resurface?
It has continued to linger because it has not been resolved. And the manner and way in which it is handled is not the best way. If this money, yes, belongs to the state governments, but the federal government will have to, kind of by way of holding, sway to it when it comes to the law itself. Why will you, if this money belongs to the local governments and the state governments combined, now you want to take money from this money and pay contractors and pay consultants when indeed the money belongs to this state government. That's where the bone of contention is. What does the law say? And before the minister had gone into all of this, there ought to be what you call public awareness. You sit down with these governors. There's the governors forum, all of them. We're not talking of forums according to local to political parties. We're talking of the entire governors. You sit down. Come on, this money is on ground. This is the figure. Each state, this is yours. But we have these obligations to be made. And how do we make it? Is the federal government going to pay, or make some deductions from here and pay? If it's not done that way and you think you can ambush them, then you have this kind of contention, and of course that will just hit up the polity, when in this, with small sitting round the table, this will be resolved.
Do you agree with the Justice Minister when he said we have recorded appreciable milestone with the looted assets?
Well, that's another thing, because we've seen accusations going on, like when the immediate past chairman of EFCC was there. Yes, property were received from criminals, and suddenly we were hearing that they've been sold to even their friends, to themselves, and all that stuff. Yes, it is one thing to grab them, recover them, but where are they today? We should be able to say, okay, this property was grabbed from so person, and I think a list should be brought so that Nigerians can see. And if there are, agencies of government that are higher, being accommodated in rented apartments, private property, I think government should simply allocate some of this, because these are also conduit pipes. Ayuba has a property, EFCC chairman, I begin to patronize Ayuba, and now we have an office there, that kind of thing. I think that, yes, they could make appreciable kind of seizures here and there, but we should see many of these things on ground. It's the truth. And if it's been sold, how was it that it was sold? Just this thing that the Hausa man will call Anyugonjo is just giveaway prices for properties that are in choice areas and all that. They are so costly. And if therefore they use public funds in purchasing or building or corruptly enriching themselves, then that should be it. So we should know, yes, landed property, where are they? If we're talking of money, where is it? And quite a lot of many other things.
All right, now let's talk about the Anambra election. It's also another issue that we are still seeing fallout from that election. There's supposed to be a supplementary election today in Ihiala and all of that. What have we seen, as far as the outcome of that election, and what's your thoughts about how much progress we've made with respect to that?
Honestly, first of all, we start with the peaceful conduct of the election. I've not heard of killings the way some people prophesied. It's going to be bloodbath, it's going to be bloodletting, corpses will be all over, human remains will be here and there, and we've not seen it. That is a good thing. We've also seen that INEC is living up to some of its expectations. However, there are still issues. Why is it that there's this recurring decimal arrival of materials very late? Sensitive and non-sensitive. And one other thing is this use of National Union of Road Transport Workers to ferry or carry some of these electoral materials. It's not once, it's not twice. That at the 11th hour, gentlemen, they said they have reneged. They are no longer interested in carrying your materials. And that's why you have some of these things. And sometimes you also have the terrain. Some of these riverine areas, for example, even though Anambra is not too riverine, but again, there are peculiar environments that will cause some kind of delays. Then you also look at the machine being used. Why is it that they fail easily? And we have not still overcome that. I think when you do an election, it's like a newsroom. For example, Daily Trust today, I'm sure the editors will sit down, the board will sit down and do a review postmortem of what happened yesterday. Okay, did we commit any wrong? Is there a place someone is complaining? Okay, how many papers did we publish? How many did we sell? And all that. So tomorrow, let's see what happens. So you plan for tomorrow, and INEC should borrow the same thing. You've conducted staggered elections, like some of like this one, Kogi, Shung, and Ondo, and all that. We should learn from many of these things so that they will enable us face the general election proper. So some of these things, yes, and I can see that there was no too much of head speeches when it came to the gubernatorial candidates. There was no mudslinging, name calling, and encouraging violence here and there, and neither will you see what you call the vigilantes for such candidate and such candidate appearing to clash here and there, as we saw the case in Gombe. Inua, the governor, and Danjuma Goje, you can see them clashing. And sometimes when you have godson, godfather, when it comes to politics, I sponsor you, you'll be governor. Okay, you are the governor. Now, the governor who sponsored you will still want to hold the steering. Turn you here, turn you there. I know that. And that's why you have many of these crises. The governor comes on board. He now feels, no, I'm no longer a political son. This is my godfather politically. I think I have my independence, kind of. And that's why things will not go down well. But congrats to FCT. We are hearing that in terms of internally generated revenue, it is now next to Lagos. Those days we hear Lagos, the commercial nerve center of Nigeria. Yes, it is. Abuja is a civil service town. Now, civil service versus business, you're saying Abuja coming, thanks to infrastructures coming on board. And I want the government to simply also, the railway that is within Abuja, just buy some coaches and let people use. That will increase the GDP, and let Nigerians, who say now probably an Ayuba, can buy coaches, buy trains, and roll them on the tracks. So that government will administer that and will get money and employment.
Okay, well, on Guardian newspaper, there's actually a writer here that says some coalition officers not good at mathematics, and this is from the INEC director. Now, do you sense an accusation of inconsistency when it comes to vote counting here?
Yeah, I wouldn't say inconsistency. They could be consistent. But you see, it's not easy to present figures. Some guys are just good in letters. Some are very good in figures. And if you carry a man who indeed is good in literature, good in English language, he doesn't go into research, presentation, facts and figures, statistics, informatics and all that, honestly, you have a problem. But when you bring in the mathematician, the geographer, the sociologist, these people who indeed would do research, bring facts and figures, and spread them according to either years, spread them according to ages, spread them according to areas, and of course you now sum the total there you present to public. You see, facts, when you are talking of figures, sometimes they tend to be very, very accurate. But when it comes to statements, statements could be interpreted in very many ways. So what are we trying to say? I think that the INEC chairman is actually saying the truth. The INEC official is saying the truth. Some of the people who are in charge of this election are not figure inclined. Therefore, they find it hard to handle figures of this nature.
Well, should we really be dealing with this kind of situation in the advent of technology and all of that we have? Should we be having to write numbers, results, with hand and all of that? Yeah,
even when you have the equipment technologically to assist you, you still have to be figure inclined to do many of those things. Therefore, instead of the long writing, you can as well do use your computer, you can use your laptop, you can use your desktop to do all of these things. And after all, if you do it longhand, how do you handle it? We're talking of a situation where we're most likely going to be using e-transmission of electricity and election results. If it's therefore going to be e-transmission, it follows that physical and manual handling of papers, sheets with figures will not be there. So it is an early warning signal. Thank God they've identified it. It's for them to begin to recruit people who indeed are figure inclined, mathematics inclined, statistics inclined, so that we don't have some of these teething problems any longer.
All right, let's move on to another story here that says the federal government is saying that Nigeria's IDP figures set to hit 3 million.
That is serious. Look at the population of many states, Bayelsa, for example. Look at populations of, you just realize that, in other words, IDPs alone,
like a state now.
they are like a state. Just like when we're talking of out-of-school syndrome, in the north alone, about 10 million. How many states have the population of 10 million in Nigeria? So if IDPs are actually reaching that level, it's a serious problem. And now we're having Boko Haram guys surrendering. As at yesterday, around 18,000. The military is becoming overwhelmed with this. How do you manage them? You send them to IDPs, you send them to communities. You know, it's a big problem. So if you say go to IDPs, you go and mingle with civilians there, babies, children, small girls, what happens? Child abuse here and there. It's a big thing that people should look out for. And that's why the government is also saying, look, come December, I've forgotten the date, we're going to shut down all IDP camps. And if you look at the scam that is also there, Governor Zulum, at a point, around 1 a.m., just took a drive to one of the camps, or two of the camps, one single night. In fact, what he saw, though he said, call everybody, there's relief. People came out. What did he see? Just about quarter of the people registered in that place. But in the daytime, you see people trooping back to go and receive relief materials. So why is it that, there's this idiomatic expression, fishing in troubled waters. That it is when there's a situation that is bad that some people cash in, get advantages, and smile to the banks. Why will you just go there and start collecting relief materials and you take them to market? Dangote will send in how many tons of rice. In the end, you go and see them in the market and they get them free. And so why should this continue? If therefore some people feel that they could be fed better in IDP camps, then why do I go to farm? Why do I go to work? When indeed I can get my beans, I can get palm oil, I can get every ingredient I need.
All right then. Well, let's take a quick break now, and then when we come back, we'll be taking a look at a few more stories on the front pages. Please stay with us.
Suleiman, Aya, and Tari, all from the Sulubawa clan, with a unique wealth of culture and deep love for cattle, which truly reflects their sense of family. But over time, everything changes with no lands for grazing. Experience the incredible story of the Fulani people, loved ones they must protect, the journey they must take.
latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Nice to see you, sir. You got a 10-year-old son, a 12-year-old son. He's a shill boy. Yeah. And how did he get to that stage? You allowed it to happen. You allowed it to fester. It's like a cancer.
It's a failure of the family, a failure of the society, and a failure of governance.
We are still going into some other hideouts to see if any apprehensions will be made tonight.
To operate within the context of the law with much respect to human rights.
All right, thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. And we have Ben Sheman, Director, Voice of Nigeria, reviewing the top stories with us, stories that made the headlines on our newspapers this morning. And now, one other concern is the issue of, should I call it fuel scarcity now? Because it doesn't seem to me like it's scarcity. It's hoarding, rather.
Hoarding, yeah.
I'd rather say. Many fueling stations, not just in Abuja, but in other parts of the country as well, having to shut down their filling stations. People are now stranded. Getting fuel now is becoming more difficult, and even transport fares is beginning to hike and all of that. Why do we have to go through this virtually? It's becoming like a ritual. Why do we have to experience this almost every end of the year?
Honestly, it beats one's imagination that in Africa, we are number one when it comes to crude oil supply in Africa. And as a OPEC member country, we are number 7. And with all of this, we still have this problem of fuel scarcity. a rumor mongering, believing country. Let me call it this way. Sometimes we'll strive so much and believe a rumor. In Abuja on a Friday evening, if you check, queues were just gathering here and there. They said, they are going to increase pump price of fuel. I mean, who is sending all of these messages? You know, it's we are so much a nation that believes in this kind of rumors. But again, government should do what is always in their purview, what they call the turnaround maintenance of refineries. If Kaduna Petrochemical is working very well at optimal level, I mean, this scarcity would be less. You go to Warri, you go to Port Harcourt. If they all are working, we have it in a very minimal way. But a situation where, at the point as it was alleged, said instead of us refining what we even import, at the point it sounds like trade by barter, as alleged. You take crude and you give some foreign companies, they give you in return refined petrol. And if that is the case, of course, many things have been lost. Your engine oil is gone because you've given crude. Your insecticide is gone. You know, quite a lot of derivatives from crude oil, they all are gone because of trade by barter. It shouldn't be the thing. And if you look at the way the refining aspect is even done, where are these experts? Where are they? When you had Chiyoda came in to establish the petrochemical company in Kaduna. That was during Shagari's time. And Chiyoda is Japanese. If, therefore, your equipment go bad, is Chiyoda still in existence? Are they still, manufacturing the same equipment you now use? As some of these things, we have problems. Even in broadcasting, for example, you realize that what you use as transmitters, you go to buy again, those guys have moved forward. They've brought modern things. And therefore, you are still talking of them coming to repair old one. They say, boy, those who are repairing those things, they all are dead. They all are gone. We don't have even the corpse, what we use to manufacture them. So the refinery should just work. Let's have turnaround maintenance. And some people are already making a hype against around Dangote refinery. Dangote, yes, will come there and make his business and make his money. NNPC is again rushing to also have a stake there. Maybe they said 20% or 30% in Dangote refinery. And so, will the management of a refinery move to enter Dangote refinery with this kind of, I don't want to call it abysmal performance, but we still need to overcome this kind of a thing.
Well, okay. All right. So we have marketers, accusing NIMASA and Nigerian Ports Authority of flouting the president's presidential directive that's receiving freight charges in dollars instead of naira. And then you also have NIMASA defending themselves, saying there was no such directive.
And that is where the National Assembly must come in. Oversight function. Now, it's like some schools in Nigeria here, you go to pay naira, they say, no, pay in dollars. And the Ministry of Education is just folding its arms. And committees on education, either Senate or House of Reps, they're folding their arms to look at that kind of a thing. Now, if federal government is standing this way, NIMASA is a government agency. Therefore, it follows that if government says, don't pay in hard currency, how will you, in Nigeria here, you buy a commodity in Nigeria here, you want to use hard currency? It doesn't add up. It also says a lot when it comes to the value of the naira. If you underrate your currency, even by way of appreciation, when we were doing economics at the O level, they say, what are the qualities of money? Durability, exchangeability, acceptability. This issue of acceptability. So why is it being rejected at this point? If, therefore, there are counter accusations as to who is doing what or not doing what, it is time for those who are in charge of oversight function to visit that place unannounced, and you see what is happening. If you check today, in terms of import, because Benin Republic sees that, see how much the quantity of rice they all were importing. What's the population of Benin Republic? They imported that rice because they knew the market is in Nigeria. They just bring it in, only for the government of Nigeria to block all of that. Now, Benin Republic has realized they've lost money. What will they do in return? Every tanker in Nigeria, every trailer, this is the amount they'll now pay in order to pass through Benin Republic to come to Nigeria. And if that is the case, it follows that we have to do something about our deep sea port. Our ports are a bit too shallow, and that's why Benin Republic realized the flaw, the mistake, the inadequacy of the Nigerian ports, and they went into deep sea. Very big ship cannot come to Nigeria. Ships cannot come to Nigeria, and that's why they go to Benin Republic, and we go to evacuate materials meant for Nigeria. Benin Republic will tax us, tax, chop us. Then we come in here, and by the time you look at what you've paid over there, what you are paying here, of course the prices, no trailer goes into business in order to fail, in order to not to make money. So when you do all these payments, you calculate here and there, of course inflation will come in.
Now there's also another problem of smuggling this fuel outside of Nigeria, and the fuel is heavily subsidized by the federal government of Nigeria, but is sold higher, much higher in our neighboring countries. And so you find smugglers taking this fuel out, to go sell them there and all of that. Would you say that we are doing very well in terms of making sure that this does not happen?
No, we are not doing very well to ensure that this does not happen. Ayuba, look at how porous, how many thousands of kilometers of the international boundary between Nigeria and its contiguous nations. And petrol across Nigeria, very high, very, very high, this for sure. And if you also check at pump price per liter globally, that of Nigeria actually tends to be down there, very low, kind of. Therefore, when it comes to, just like you want to drink a cup of water, this swan water you see, how much does it take to refine it?
It's been 2 days since.
Then how much is it sold outside? So you see that government is actually refining. But back home, we should be able to have this commodity available. And so when people are just ferrying them across the borders, at the point you shut down the borders, and you now say you've banned the sales of refined fuel from a so kilometer to the boundary to the next country, yet you find them passing. And some of these, in fact, if you go to many of these areas, at the point you enter another country without realizing you've already entered, you have to use some theodolites, you have to use some equipment to know you've already entered another country. And the roads sometimes, you see them very sandy. Sometimes you don't follow the conventional roads, therefore you can just cross over. And that's why when the customs said they were going to use helicopters, monitor up there and see what is happening. We still have not seen that due to this lack of funds. So there has to be appropriation, and again, back to the lawmakers. They have standing committees. They have committees who indeed are in charge of oversighting. When money is appropriated, they know how much and for what. What's up ahead, they know. Now let's go and confirm this money has reached you. What has been done with it?
Now with the coming of this PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, the PPPRA is going to be sort of scrapped now. You have new regulatory commissions coming on board. And we know that the PPRA plays that role of making sure that regulations as far as petroleum is concerned is observed and adhered to at all times. In fact, you find them going to filling stations in times like this, shutting down, some of them and all of that. What happens in this instance now?
You see, all you need to do is to copy paste. It is done in the computer world, the ICT world. What happened to NEPA? When you said you have unbundled Unbundled implies you break NEPA into companies. GenCos, generating companies. These are the ones that will generate this electricity. Then you have the DISCOs, distribution company. This one will distribute the light. Then you now have those who will sell this commodity in our offices, in our houses, in our streets, and all that stuff. But again, an agency was created to regulate the conduct here. All we see is they just wake up one day. Oh, the law says we can increase the consumption of light per unit. Now, borrow that and come to the oil industry. PPPRA, as I usually call them, they all have been unbundled. Therefore, regulating agencies, again, are on ground. So if they are on ground, are they doing their jobs? Because people just sit down in offices with big ties, enjoy their ACs, collect allowances, and they are promoted over increase on prices of pump prices of petrol. It shouldn't be. Let us simply make the system work. Let's have the refineries work. In as much as these refineries are not working, and you just have some agencies, they realize that it costs them so much to import. Of course, the regulatory agency will simply say, okay, add this amount, and they add it. If you now say, okay, by 2022, we're not going to have anything to do with handling of petroleum, for example. What do you do with the refineries? You want to sell them? You want to commercialize them? Do you sell them at the stage in which they are? You know, you sell them at a very big loss. And the person who will buy them will have to do a lot of refurbishing. And in doing refurbishing, he has to bring experts. And these experts are coming from abroad. Change this, change that, at what price? And all of that will have a circle coming back to the consumer, the Nigerian. And you can imagine the boomeranging effect. It's a circle. It follows that if you bought this company at a high price, you brought experts, high price, you paid this money, and now it is working. Therefore, for you to make profit, not to break even, you have to make profit. You are there to make profit. Therefore, the effect will have to go to the public. And at that point, new government says, oh boy, we have washed our hands of this. It now means the consumer has been hijacked. It's at the mercy of the owners of the refineries.
Okay, let's move on to, I'm going to link two stories. In the wake of Boko Haram surrendering, there's still attacks by them, especially this recent one on a military base in Borno. And then I want to link it with the officer that was arrested in connection with the bandits' attack, at NDA.
Yes, the sergeant arrested is Sergeant Solomon. And he's based in Yola. But how did he connect with these bandits? And if it is so, and it is true, it means intelligence is at work. You can imagine the distance between Yola and Kaduna. You did all of this. And usually that's what you call a mole. A mole is someone who works in the system. He's like a spy for an enemy. Everything, every work plan that has been done, every scheming that has been done to rout, to overcome the opponent. Therefore, the mole will now tell the opponent, this is it. And that's what is called moonlighting in spy business. And so some of them are actually... Now, if a thorough investigation, questioning is done, you look at the unit in which he works. Are there files? Is he in communications department? I mean, does he link up between operations, those in the field? Does he link up? I mean, usually it's not just the generals. There are also small people. I mean, when you have a president, for example, is there no tailor for the driver, cook for the president? So if you have generals, it follows that even privates are there. Each one has a duty. But again, so who is revealing what? So it's a big thing. They look at the telephones, you grab telephones, check. In fact, The law at this point will allow the security agencies to break into his communication, take messages. Even if you delete here, it's still in the system, depending on who your service provider is. And coming to Boko Haram still attacking a military base, you see the frequency has reduced, honestly. It has. I remember when General Buratai was still Chief of Army Staff. At the point he said, look, Boko Haram, the way it is so scattered there in tatters. But fear what is coming later on. And there's going to be ISWAP, Islamic State for West African province. And they are getting trained in some unoccupied spaces, what you call the Sahel or Sahelian region. Upon Mali, Senegal up there, Niger up there, up to Algeria, Mauritania, Libya. You see, that angle, that circle there is unoccupied. There's no government presence anywhere. So these people have already learned the antics of Osama bin Laden, living in the mountains, living in caves, staying without food, and they can strike when they want. And that was where they got their training and they moved in. We expect that what we call African Council of Defense Ministers, they have it. These are things they should always come together, work in unison. And of course, even the Arab League, they should also work with these people, because this unoccupied space is in Africa. And when ISIS was rooted in Syria, of course they said the next target will be in Africa, and this is what we are seeing. When the military sounded this warning, the political class did not take it serious, and that is what we are seeing today. So we should be able, when the military is saying they are running short of equipment, it is real. If you import bullets, for example, every bullet fired, dollars are going. And the moment they are going, you begin to sound, we are running short of so thing. It's for you. We are not, making them. Therefore, we have to import. The contractors will also come in. And who are these contractors? Politicians. So that's what we call the war economy, or the economy of the war. Some people will benefit. Some are selling AK-47, importing them. Some guns, some Uza, some rocket-propelled grenades, some all sorts of uniform, boots, just name it. Some people enjoy this kind of a thing. But for God's sake, let us ensure that whether they are bandits or terrorists or whatever so-called, we should be able to dominate, conquer them, and let Nigerians begin to have the peace that we used to have. So it's nice that Nigerians should support, honestly, the military.
All right. Well, let's go on a break now, and then when we come back, we'll be having other discussions on the program. Please stay with us.
Suleiman, Aya, and Tari, all from the Sulubawa clan, with a unique wealth of culture and deep love for cattle, which truly reflects their sense of family. But over time, everything changes with no lands for grazing. Experience the incredible story of the Fulani people, loved ones they must protect, the journey they must take.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Nice to see you, sir. You got a 10-year-old son, a 12-year-old son. He's a shill boy. Yeah, and how did he get to that stage? You allowed it to happen. You allowed it to fester. It's like a cancer.
It's a failure of the family, a failure of the society, and a failure of governance.
We are still going into some other hideouts to see if any apprehensions will be made tonight.
To operate within the context of the law with much respect to human rights.
All right, thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. And we have Ben Shemang, Director, Voice of Nigeria, in the studio, looking at the stories that made the headlines here on Dailies on Daybreak. Now, one of the stories of interest you would find is that about internally generated revenue. Lagos State leads as FCT beats Rivers, Kano, 33 others as far as revenue generation is concerned. This is a good news, isn't it? As against what many people have said, well, the FCT is not really a commercially viable city.
Honestly, the face of FCT is changing. And if you look at the informal sector of the economy, some women having some shops here and there, some men are running some restaurants here and there. I mean, they constitute the informal sector of the Nigerian economy, and it is booming very well. If you also check, virtually every area council, they have these shopping malls, have these markets, and mostly they go to collect some market rates here and there. So money is being, they are generating money for the government. But again, you also look at the huge infrastructure that is available in the Abuja market. The roads are good. But I'm not yet talking about the ones into the small towns here and there in FCT. By the way, the FCT minister ought to, by now, he ought to have a kind of open up some new districts because they've stayed that long. And we also expect that the road around Akpo, Legislative Quarters, Mechanic Village, up to that big hill down there. What's the name of the village? You see, if you open up that place, the kind of foodstuff that also enter this Abuja, buying and selling will be the in thing. You look at the hotels, they are booming in this country. Look at the taxi business here and there, they all are booming. Therefore, it follows that since the influx of the people is there, and you also have businesses going on, and government is following with some taxation, of course, the IGR will follow. But for other states that are not doing very well, especially in the north and some eastern part of Nigeria, the central part of this country, quite a lot needs to be done. Infrastructure, for example, they need it. They need it and they need it. So government should not just be paying just salaries and all that stuff. No. And again, there's a limit as to how state governments will even interfere in just running of markets. I mean, why will a state government, you are in the capital city over there, you're rushing to go build some markets in local government? That is the job of a local government. Because when you look at tiers of government, you still have the local government, you have the state, you have the local government, the federal government. And when it comes to exclusive legislative list, that's where the federal government will be in charge at making of currency, for example, the military, the police, they all are within the purview of the federal government. And that's why it is exclusively for the federal government. And when you have the concurrent, of course, like the universities, you can have universities, private will have, state government will have, federal will have, and that's why they are concurrent. Everybody can join in there. But there are things you call residual. These residual laws, they are for the local government. Market, for example, running of graveyards, for example, all sorts of building of gutters. But why would the state government, when they share money from Abuja here, you're now going to dump the money into a single treasury account, and from there, the local government chairman is not even allowed to touch the money. At the point we're hearing, it's alleged that some states even do the vouchers for local government staff at the state quarters of a state. And so if you do all of this, therefore, you see that the local governments are left out without anything. But if you leave the state governments, the local governments with their money, of course, the IGR will increase. And I want to say that I've seen that Governor Suleva of Nasarawa State, he's saying that, look, he just swore in some local government chairman and said, you are going to have your autonomy, financial and all that stuff. And if they do all of that, you see, they'll go into forestry. Forestry, therefore, you go into farming, cashew, you have coconut, you have all sorts of things that will assist there. You go into other things like agriculture, farming, fish farming, dry season farming. They all will be there. Poultry and all that.
All right. By virtue of the location of the FCT and the states neighboring the FCT, do you think that there are things we are not doing to make sure that these kind of success is achieved in the neighboring states? What advantage does the FCT gives these neighboring states to also boost their own revenue?
Yeah, number one, if you check, I doubt if there is anywhere that the FCT, that Nasarawa state government makes money more than the boundary from Nyanya to Sharp Corner, Masaka, Ado. The kind of building material that is taken, market that is there, is it cement, the banking industry and all that, and the population, those working in Abuja, they live in that place. And when you are filling your tax form, you feel and pay to where you live. So you see, many people who live in Abuja and work in Abuja, they pay their tax to contiguous states. You pay to Niger State. You pay to element of Kaduna State. You pay to Nasarawa State. You pay to Kogi. You pay to Niger. So that around. So there are things they have to they benefit from many of these things. And sometimes when people want to sell things a bit higher, they leave these contiguous states and come into Abuja. Yam will come in from Nasarawa State, come from Niger. You see them in Abuja. Is it the ginger? They're coming in from Kaduna State. So having a boundary or living as a contiguous neighbor to FCT is an advantage. Because in terms of communication, selling, buying, and of course, it's an advantage that they have to share.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
Friends indeed.
Yes, really. We hope to have you again on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yes, our newspaper reviewer has been Ben Sheman, director with Voice of Nigeria, in the studio here, giving us perspectives on the stories that made the headlines today. And now let's go on a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at other discussions on the program. This time around, talking about World Orphans Day, and we have a guest joining us to talk about that. Please stay with us.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Nice to see you, sir. You got a 10-year-old son, a 12-year-old son. He's a shill boy. Yeah. And how did he get to that stage? You allowed it to happen. You allowed it to fester. It's like a cancer.
It's a failure of the family, a failure of the society, and a failure of governance.
We are still going into some other hideouts to see if any apprehensions will be made tonight.
To operate within the context of the law with much respect to human rights.
Suleiman, Aya, and Tari, all from the Sulubawa clan, with a unique wealth of culture and deep love for cattle, which truly reflects their sense of family. But over time, everything changes with no lands for grazing. Experience the incredible story of the Fulani people, loved ones they must protect, the journey they must take.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, moving on to our second discussion. Yesterday was World Orphans Day, and World Orphans Day is marked annually on the second Monday of November, and it aims to draw attention to the problems of children deprived of their families. Now, today in the studio, we have Juliet Iseko. She is the founder of Julie Quincy Orphanage. You're welcome to the studio, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
TV. All right, so here are a few facts, on the orphans around the world. There are around 153 million orphaned children worldwide.
And of course, we have 2.1 million more children becoming orphans every year in Africa alone. Food for fans, every 18 seconds, a child becomes an orphan.
And that is actually, by Food for Orphans. All right, now 400,000 orphans die every year of malnutrition.
And we also have Food for Orphans. 8 out of 10 children orphaned by AIDS live in sub-Saharan Africa. And that's according to the UNICEF.
That's quite a huge number, by the way.
Very, very
and yes, 99% of orphans will never become adopted. And this is still a report by Food for Orphans.
Well, very interesting. You also have that there are estimated over 1.2 million trafficked child each year globally. That's also according to the UNICEF. 20 million children are orphaned in India. The SOS Children are saying that villages out of the 21.3 million refugees world are under 18 years old. And that's according to UNHCR.
Orphans have a life expectancy of less than 30 years old if not provided with support. That is yet another fact, and it is an appalling one if I do say so. And to answer some of our questions, like we said earlier, welcome in Juliet Iseko. All right, let's move on to the first question. Why did you decide to go into orphan care?
Thank you very much. I decided to go into orphan care right from a very tender age, because myself, I'm an orphan. So growing up was not easy for me. So at a point I told myself that if I'm able to find myself a shelter, the first thing I'm going to start doing is to take care of orphans. So that's why I'm into orphanage work.
That's interesting, because that's not an area where many people aspire, to engage in. You said you started, thinking about that right from an early age and all of that. Now, what did you do to eventually, start doing what you're doing now in terms of preparing yourself, to take on this responsibility?
After school, I started working as a teacher. I taught in many schools, after which I was able to start business. I stopped the teaching and I started business, selling of second-hand clothes. So from there I was able to acquire a piece of land, which I started building on it little by little. And when I was able to raise a shelter for myself, so I started adopting those orphans. I started from my community first, my village. We have some orphans there, so I picked them, like 4 of them, and I started with them. Gradually, we started growing till where we are today.
That's very interesting. So you bought the land
yes.
with the with
the money made
with the
from
plan,
thrift, yeah.
with the plan to do an orphanage, and you raise the structure with the plan to also have that orphanage there.
With the
correct?
support of family members. It's not like I did everything myself, yeah.
Okay, is your orphanage registered with the government?
Yes, it's registered with the government.
Okay, all right. You know, in Nigeria, it's actually common to find orphanages where children are poorly cared for. How do you think orphanages in Nigeria, or can you tell us how orphanages in Nigeria are regulated?
Yes, orphanages in Nigeria are regulated by some bodies, like we have social welfare, they regulate, and then we have the local government. There's a branch of, I think, still social welfare, gender department in Buhari, like where I am I'm under Buhari local government. So we have a body there too that regulates us. And then before you are allowed to start running an orphanage, you have to register with CAC, and then you also go attend a workshop with EFCC. So they will brief you and tell you some things that you are supposed to do, especially in the area of money laundering.
Okay.
So I think these are the bodies that.
Okay, so you're saying, like, for example, those orphanages that are not regulated, you know, they engage in, you know, a lot of vices, like you said, money laundering and the rest.
And some do trafficking, as I heard.
Okay.
Yes.
So how is that dangerous to the children in the orphanages?
It's dangerous to them because by the time a child falls into that kind of an orphanage, they may either sell the child out or give the child to the wrong person, and that alone can bring problems to the child. The child will have some problems while growing up.
So, for how long have you been operating your orphanage?
Close to 5 years now.
Okay, and how has the journey been, you know, for you in this endeavor? Like, what are the common challenges that you experience in all these 5 years, you know, raising children that are orphans?
It's not been easy. We've been passing through a lot of challenges, like taking care of them, feeding them, sending them to school, and also we don't have access to facilities like healthcare facilities. So that area, we really find it difficult. Once a child gets sick, sometimes we have to go over the counter to buy drugs, medications for them, which is not really good. But because if the money is not readily available, we don't have choice but to just buy them drugs over the counter. So that area has been a very big challenge for us, taking care of their health, sending them to school, and also feeding them.
So what was the size of your orphanage, and isn't it much better to have them, you know, trained, you know, by teachers instead of like sending them to school and all of that?
Yes, that's what we are trying to do now. We have a nursery, 2 blocks of nursery and primary in my orphanage, where we teach them. I employ 2 teachers because sending them outside was not easy, paying the school fees. So I set up a small school inside the compound. So I have 2 teachers plus myself, so we teach them. But once they get past that primary level, they just have to go out. We have to send them to secondary schools, and we don't have secondary school in the orphanage. We don't have the facilities to take them through secondary school. So we send them outside to school. So that alone, we have to be paying the fees and buying their books and their other things that they need.
Okay, so how do you come in contact with these orphans? Do people bring them to your institution? Do you go out looking for them?
No, I don't go out looking for them. I get them from different sources.
Okay.
Like, I started with 4 kids, which I told you I brought from my own community. So when I started, and later people started getting to know us. Some will just call us and tell us, we have children here. Like last year, they called me from a place in Massacre to come and pick up 4 children that they lost their father like 3 years back, and then all of a sudden they now lost their mom. So no one to take care of them. So I traveled down to Massacre to pick those kids. They are there with us now. Some, they will bring them themselves. People will bring them to us. Like an uncle brought 2 children from Enugu that they lost both parents. So we get them from different sources. And some come to abandon their children with us. Like the youngest child in my orphanage now is 2 months old. 2 months ago, a woman walked into the orphanage and she told us, I don't know if she lied, that she's an orphan, and she came with 3 other children. She's an orphan. She lost her husband last year, and then she was heavily pregnant, and she doesn't have where to keep them. That the landlord just kicked them out. So we accepted her and the 3 kids, and 2 months later she put to bed. Immediately after she put to bed, she ran away. Now, right now, the children are at the orphanage, 4 of them. So I had to take them down to social welfare and then to police station in Kubwa, just to register the case, because that's what they told us if such occurrences take place. So the children are there with me now. So we get them from different sources like that.
Okay. What level of background checks do you conduct before accepting these children? Because I remember a story of a particular girl in Lagos who was kidnapped and later found at an orphanage. So what level of background checks do you conduct to ascertain that these children really are orphans?
What we were told is once they bring them, we should snap them.
Okay.
Then take those pictures to the police station and then also to social welfare. So that's just what I do basically. Once they come in and tell me their stories, I wouldn't know if it's true. So what I do is I snap the person and the children, the person that brought the children. I'll snap them, then give them a paper to write down, tell us the story or the background of the children, where they are from, their age, things like that before we adopt them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, why do you feel the need to do this? Running an orphanage is such a huge responsibility.
Yes.
What keeps you going? Why do you do this?
I just have that passion. It's a passion that keeps me going. I just love being with them. It's something I told you from childhood, because myself, I'm an orphan. I lost my mom when I was 6, and then later on, before I get to age 18, I lost my dad. The person that saw me through school was my uncle, that I call my dad. So that's passion. Because of what I went through while growing up, I just felt that so many other children are passing through such, so they need help.
What were those experiences like? Was it like you were unfairly treated while growing up? The person that eventually took on the responsibility to raise you and all of that. What were those kind of experiences that you had?
The experience was tough because when I lost my dad, I was still in secondary school. So I was left with my stepmom. So she really tortured me while growing up. At times I have to stay back while my mates are going to school just to fetch water. We used to have 2 drums of then. She would ask me to fill them up because she was selling Mama Put then. So I would start up very early in the morning, like 6. I'll start fetching water. And before you know it, the annoying part is that she'll start using it. Because I used to use this big jerry can. And I would go 9 times to fill 1 drum. So then I'll calculate. I said, okay, by now, maybe by 7:30 or 8, I should be done. But before you know it, 9 o'clock, I'll still be in the house. Because when I'm fetching, she'll be busy using from the water. So the experience was not easy. And most times when I return from school, she sells food, but she won't give me the food that I want to eat. She will have to wait until she finished selling her food, the leftovers, before she will allow me eat. So growing up was not easy for me.
So what kind of setting does your institution have? Is it a family setting or like a boarding school setting?
It's just like a family setting because I live there with them, with my other kids. I have 2 kids, 2 children, my own biological children. So we all live together in the orphanage. So it's like a family setting. Yes.
I believe you're married?
Yes, I'm married.
Okay, so how is your husband, partnering with you in this endeavor?
At first, it wasn't easy accepting my visions, but as time went by, when I persisted, he accepted it. Yes.
So how about your staff? Because you definitely cannot be taking care of the children alone. Do you have do you have staff that actually help out?
Yes.
And supervisors as well?
Yes. I have 2 teachers, a male and a female. Then I have 1 other woman, elderly woman that helps in the cooking. I wouldn't say they are well trained, but they have experience because they too have a similar, like the other teacher, she too, she's a widow. So she lost her husband and she's having 2 kids too, who are also with her there at the orphanage.
Okay, so, how do you raise funding for the orphanage, taking care of the children?
Well-meaning Nigerians and some kind-hearted people come to assist us from time to time. But apart from that, I do other things to raise money to care for the orphans. I don't just depend on people. I do other things like I do farming. I do fish farming at the back of the orphanage. So from there I get fish that we use for the children because buying fish and meat is not easy. Then again, the teaching that I do, I went around my community so that other parents that cannot afford their children to go to big schools or bigger schools, they also bring their children to the orphanage. So we have like 15 children coming from outside. So they also pay small money, which I also add up with the little farming to support myself and the children.
Okay, is getting people to adopt these children an issue? Is it a major issue?
It's an issue because people don't want to adopt children that are not theirs. So even if they want to adopt, they start giving you choices. They start telling you they need a newly born baby of so months, or they need so age. And maybe you don't have that age. The age you have, they don't want. They will tell you that they need a child that from the age of maybe 2 years. And maybe you have like 10 years, 12, like that. They will say no, they want the ones that will grow up to know them. That these ones are already old. So they are not willing to adopt those other grown-up children. They start giving you age limits. That's the problem.
Okay, finally, what are the kind of ways that you would want, government help or assistance in what you do, and how well have you enjoyed it?
I really need support from the government, especially in the area of health. That's the major area that is giving us concern. Once the child gets sick, honestly, we start running helter-skelter. In the middle of the night, a child starts convulsing. You don't have a hospital or any hospital that facility that we can take the child to. So if the government can help in that area, we'll be very, very happy. Like maybe giving us or a scheme like this NHIS people do. If the government can start up a scheme for the orphans like that, so that any time they get sick, we can just take them to the hospitals where they will be catered for. I think we'll be happy.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing your experience with us. Running the orphanage, Julie Quincy Orphanage.
Yes, sir.
And we've been speaking with Julie Iseko. She is the founder of Julie Quincy Orphanage here in Abuja, specifically in Bwari, talking to us about her experience running an orphanage. Like we said, today is World Orphans Day. Now we have orphans in millions all around the world. So the little you can do as a person to extend
a helping hand, whether it's resources,
yes,
time, donations, it will actually go a long way for these kids.
Yeah. Well, at this point, let's go on a break now and then take a look at sports in 60 seconds on the show before we round up the show. Please do it.
Get latest updates on current topical issues and breaking news by downloading the Trust TV mobile app on your Android devices. Go online, click Google Play Store, search Trust TV, install the app, and get doses of unfiltered information on happenings all over the world in your pocket. Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Hello, welcome to Trust Sports in 60 seconds. Enyimba goalkeeper John Neville has been announced as Francis Azovo's replacement in Super Eagles squad for this month's 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Liberia and Cape Verde. Liverpool hero Graham Souness has predicted that Manchester City will be unstoppable if they sign a striker like Harry Kane or Erling Haaland. Souness believes City are still lacking a cutting edge despite Saturday's win at Manchester United. Former Liverpool midfielder Danny Murphy has urged Manchester United board to take decisive action on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer before things get worse. He made this known on the backdrop of United's 2-0 loss to Manchester City at Old Trafford on Saturday. And finally, Liverpool's 25-game unbeaten run has finally ended after they lost 3-2 to West Ham United at the London Stadium on Sunday. And that's all the top headlines on Trust Sports in 60 seconds. Do not forget to subscribe, like and follow us across all social media platforms.
All right, with that, we've come to the end of Daybreak for today on the show. In fact, it's been very, very insightful.
Yes, it has.
Hopefully, you join us again tomorrow for another time on the program. We do this every morning on weekdays, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's certainly an interesting show you don't want to miss.
Definitely. And do not forget to follow us across all our social media platforms as well. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. Just search for Trust TV and you will definitely find us there. I am Darshan Hussaina Usman.
And I am Ayuba Ilya. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.